Today is February 13th. Pitchers and catchers report to Florida this week. Let's talk some spring training, some G-Man Choi news, and we're drafting infielders this week. You're listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Yins guys, thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. My name is Josh, and I am joined, as always, by my brother Jake. In light of today being Super Bowl Sunday, I thought I'd bring out one of those big game ads. You know,
bro, they don't make the commercials like they used to.
No.
I'll tell you what, some things the 90s did right. Commercials was one of them. The 90s commercials were fantastic.
Either way, we had some conversations on Twitter this week about the advertisements and how they're not allowed to say Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that. And there are people tweeting at me like, dude, it's been like that for like 10 years. Which I don't think is right, by the way, because like not very many people said 10 years. They said like, oh, it's been a few years. But like, it has not been as intentional as it's been this year. I don't watch TV and I'm still picking up on it. I think I'm seeing them on Twitter or something like that. Like the commercials coming through. I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to talk about that. I'm just not going to get into it. But hey, we both have a little bit of an interesting beverage here today.
Yeah?
I'll let you go first because you made a comment on it before we hit record.
I did. I went out and got my Sprite. And I love these miniature cans because it makes me feel like I'm Andre the Giant.
So myself, I am going to be enjoying a Boylan's Vanilla Cream.
Ooh.
A little cream soda, little Boylan's. But the only reason I decided to crack this open is because I have a story. We stopped at Kroger after church this morning, and we were like, okay, we got to pick up a couple things. I said, I'll go in. I'll go get whatever you need. I'll just run in, come back out. So Keely went with me. We jumped in. We were like, we got 5 things to get. And so we went and we got, the 4 things. Then we got all this cream soda because I didn't have any, and was like, oh, I'd like to have a cream soda with the big game tonight. So we get all of it, right? We see a few people, we chat, whatever. And then we get up to the front and I'm like, all right, let's pay. And this is where it all starts. I set I had the basket. I set the basket up on the deal and I start scanning. And I'm scanning through. I get to the cream soda. I grab the first one out, scan it, put it in the thing. Grab the second. I think I had the third one. I think the third one is or maybe it was the fourth one because I had 8 of them in there. So maybe it was the 4th one that I pulled out. I must have been pulling from the back. And the front was not all the way on the counter. I pulled, and the thing tipped and landed right at Keely's feet. Boom! Busted and blue cream soda all over the place. And I'm like, oh boy. So it doesn't stop there. You think it'd be like, oh, that's embarrassing enough. So I pick up, there was only 2 of them that busted. One of them, like, the top with the cap and everything blew clear over to the other side of the deal. And so I give Keely a couple paper towels because they were just sitting there. And I was like, here, wipe yourself up. She starts cleaning the floor. I'm like, no. No, they're going to do that. Like they were super helpful. They were like, it's okay. We'll clean it up. Don't worry about it. So I told her, just like, wipe your pants off, wipe your shoes off. To which later she was like, well, at least my shoes smell good now. I was like, yeah, okay. But anyway, I get to the whole thing and he was like, do you want us to go get you more? And I'm thinking like, no, like this is embarrassing enough. I'll take the 6. Yeah. I'll take the 6. So I wiped them off and and then I get to the end and they're scrounging to clean this up. And I'm like, oh gosh. And then I'm like, all right, I'll pay. And then I pull my phone out and I look at the deal where you pay and I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to pay with my phone, am I?
Hey, you never carry your wallet.
Never carry it. I can pay almost everywhere with my phone now. So I'm trying to scan my phone and I'm like, I know I look dumb because I don't see the logo. So I looked at the guy. I was like, can I pay with my phone? He's like, no. He goes, you can use Kroger Pay. And I'm like, why did you go the Walmart route here? I used to be able to pay with my phone here. And they went the Walmart route where you have to have their app and scan a code. And I was like, oh, okay. I know you're here cleaning up this mess, but can I go out to my car and get a card and come back in and just leave all this right here? Just like, they're super cool about everything, but it was incredibly embarrassing. And it was like, what like a whole ordeal this was. You know, it's bad enough.
Katie's going next time.
She's like, we had our neighbor of ours actually was right there. Like they were in there. So we talked to them. And then when we came out, I was telling them what just happened. And Katie pulls up and she's like, here's the card. And then she looked at our neighbors. She's like, can you just take him home? I'm ready to go. I don't know him. So it was pretty funny. But yeah, kind of an eventful afternoon here.
Yeah, that's funny.
So I wanted to save that. Yeah. Anyway, we got some stuff to get into. Pirates made a couple more non-roster, some minor league signings and some non-roster invites. G-Man Choi, disappointed that the Pirates requested that he not play in the World Baseball Classic. We'll talk about that, maybe get into a couple World Baseball Classic things. And then obvious thing is pitchers and catchers report to spring training this week. And so we'll get into that. Everybody, by the time our next episode comes out, everybody will be there. So next week, it's like everyone's there. So we'll talk about that more next week. But this week, you know, just kind of like a little spring training prep. I'm starting to feel warm for whatever reason, just because I know they're going to show up in Florida. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're drafting infielders this week, and we got some good responses from last week. So I'm assuming we're going to get even more because I'm much less prepared for this one, but we'll go over that stuff. But yeah, before we get in, guys, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel so you know things are coming out. Click like, helps out with all those sort of things. If you're listening to the audio and you're not subscribed or followed, depending on what podcast thing you have, do that too, so that you know. I mean, it's every week, but you never know. Let's go ahead and do those things so that you know we're coming out. Give us a follow on Twitter, all those things. Just wanted to say that out of the gate. So let's get into this. G-Man Choi, let's start with that. Okay. G-Man Choi disappointed the Pirates, requested he not play in the WBC. I don't know how much you want to do we want to go over the scenario first? Do you want to just go right into your thoughts? How do you want to handle this?
Well, I mean, I feel like, going to the scenario a little bit will help first.
So basically he wants to play in the WBC. Pirates said no. He just had surgery in November on his elbow to remove loose bodies from his elbow, which is, the reason.
Yeah.
And then basically he came out and said he was disappointed and deeply hurt because I was building up nicely for the national team training camp in the middle of this month in the first round of the WBC. Is there a right and a wrong in this? Is there a super, I don't know. Take this. Where are you at?
So first and foremost, we're the ones signing his paycheck. So I get where the Pirates are coming from. Dude, you just had surgery and you're just, he's just now healthy enough to take live batting practice.
That's a great point right there that I'll get into as well.
But so what makes me as a franchise feel comfortable with him going and competing right away when if he just reports to spring training as normal, it's just we like to see you. We like to kind of get you going, probably is Tomzik still the head trainer or whatever, have him there, see how your progress is going before we just say, hey, go play in the tournament. And I don't want to downgrade the tournament. I'll get into my thoughts on that later, but.
Okay. Do they list that? I don't see that. What? I don't see that listed as head trainer. I don't see that listed as like a coach on their site, so I can't answer that question. Anyway, I just took the dumbest thing I could take and ran with it. But yeah, so I'm going to go back to I was healthy enough to take live batting practice recently.
Sure.
Like you said literally that was his quote. I was healthy enough to take live batting practice recently. I don't know like how much playing time he was going to get for the Korean team. Probably all of it. I don't know. I don't know who's. Yeah. I didn't look at it. Right. I didn't look that close into it,
right.
Which we'll inevitably get into. But like if you're just now healthy for that, the last thing I want you doing is going and playing in like a tournament that is if it's that important to you, then it's high leverage.
Yeah.
You're going to be playing 100% if it's that important to you. Instead of showing up at spring training and taking a couple innings and taking, 3 innings and taking your 2 at bats and working your way back.
Yeah.
I mean, you have an arbitration case open right now.
That might play into it a little bit as well.
To the decision or to him being upset?
To the Pirates saying no.
Yeah, it's not playing into him being upset. Let's go ahead and go down that path for a second, because the narrative that seemed to be out there for a minute was, oh, first you go to arbitration with him and now this. It's first off, let's just clear one thing up. Like going to arbitration with a player is not a problem. That's not like a crappy thing to do. Like that is just what happens right here. You would like to avoid arbitration. That would be ideal. And as far as I'm concerned, and we talked about this on the show already, the Pirates did their part. He was projected to get $4.5 million. They offered him 4.65 or 4.625 or whatever it is.
This ain't his first rodeo with this either. The Rays took him to arbitration last year. Now the panel sided with him last year.
They did. But still.
Like it's happened to him before.
So if I'm the Pirates and he asked for like 5.4, almost $1 million more than his projection. And so I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to pay you an extra $1 million. Not really. It's like an extra player. Because they're apart by like league minimum, right? Like I think it's like 4.6 to 5.4. So that's, you know what I mean? You're around another player.
000.
Yeah, you're around another player.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still not a lot, but it's just the principle of the matter that he took them there instead of just like working it out. It's just not a big deal. It's not like, oh, now we're mad at him because he did that. He's allowed to do that.
And I don't even know if it's the Pirates taking him to arbitration as much as it's him taking the Pirates to arbitration.
That's true too. But
they offered him a contract and they offered him fair value.
But even if it doesn't matter, he has the right to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I don't think the Pirates really necessarily even have to be mad at him for doing that. It's oh, it's his right. Okay. So we'll just see. We'll see where it lands. It's just not like, yes, can arbitration get ugly? It can. I don't know that you're worried about arbitration getting ugly for a guy who just showed up. You know what I mean? Like it's just different. And maybe that is when it gets ugly. I just don't see that as a thing. And I think if the Pirates or if G-Man Choi are really mad and they're taking, like, let's say Choi's only mad about this because he's going to arbitration, or the Pirates only blocked him because they're going to arbitration, then sorry, you guys are soft. Yeah. Like this is just part of the business. You go to arbitration sometimes. It's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. That's not a bad relationship type thing. So, and if, like I said, if it is, that's on them. That's not how this is supposed to work.
Right.
I just think that's a lousy thing to say, is like first arbitration and now this. No, this is the first thing. This is the first thing.
Yeah.
So, or you could say first you signed Santana and now this, because signing Santana might have been the biggest impact on his playing time.
Oh, absolutely.
But either way, it is not a Pirates thing either. The Pirates have, what did we say? I thought I had 13 players playing in the WBC, including Roansy Contreras, David Bednar, Dwayne Underwood, Harleen Garcia, Tanaj Thomas, and then a bunch of minor leaguers. You know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
it's not a Pirates thing. And I gotta tell you, all four of those players on the 40-man roster who are going are pitchers. And if this was my decision, they'd all be blocked. Every one of them would be blocked.
So, did you look up the World Baseball Classic, like pitch limits and stuff?
No, but I know that you have. And I'll tell you, and this is what we're going to get into right here, because I know we're going to talk about this a little bit, because you and I are on opposite ends of the spectrum of this. To me, the WBC is exhibition games, and I just don't want my guys going out there, especially young pitchers like Roansy Contreras, and guys who spent time hurt last year, like David Bednar, and who are very important to this team. Those two guys alone, like, I don't want you going out there. If you're playing in the WBC, first off, you probably think that it's important.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Most of the players do.
Most of the players do.
Whether they're playing in it or not.
Right. So, well, yeah, okay. The ones that are playing in it for sure think it's important.
Yeah.
I don't want you going out there going 100%. You know what I mean? At that point, when I got to depend on you all year, guaranteed Roansy Contreras is on a pitch limit this year. And now I have to let him go play in the WBC. To me, the Pirates are like, they're being too loose with this. Roansy Contreras would not be pitching in this if I was running the show. I'm telling you that right now. The WBC is just not important to me. I don't care. I'm the one paying you, even though it's not like he's getting paid a ton. And maybe that would play. Maybe if these guys were on bigger contracts, it would be like, I don't know. So this is where you and I differ.
Specifically with pitchers, correct?
Specifically with pitchers. Hitters, I'm not as concerned about. Pitchers, but young pitchers, I'm just like, dude, I mean, we're asking for Roansy to get hurt.
I wouldn't say we're on opposite ends of this, because I totally see what you're saying. I get it, and I understand your concern, and I can see that. But before you go to this point, before you go to the pitch limits, I do want to, because I just said, like, we're going to end up getting Roansy hurt. That's not what I mean. That's not, you never plan on guys getting hurt. So I don't want that to be the sentence that I said. What I want to say is, like, because of innings limits, we're going to lose more of him because of this. Because there's a chance that they are going to these innings.
They could, and they would be rightfully, if they're really doing it for his health, they could add, they could take a couple innings off what they want. They could ease him in a little bit more.
So that you're saying, we want you to throw 130 innings this year, and because you're doing this, I'm going to knock it down to 120.
It depends on what you're about to read about innings limits.
Well, just in general, lose about 10 innings or whatever.
So go ahead. But tell me why I shouldn't care.
So in the first round of the tournament, no pitcher is allowed to throw no pitcher is allowed to throw more than 65 pitches in the first round. In the second round, they go to 80, and then the third round is 95. However, if you've thrown more than 30 pitches as a reliever, you have to sit out 1 day. If you throw more than, there it is. It was above that part. So if you throw 30 or more pitches, you have to sit out at least 1 day. If you throw 50 or more, you have to sit out at least 4 days. So they are putting these pitch limits in and saying, like, you're not going to take these guys from their MLB teams and overuse them.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the competitive aspect of that is that the fact that they don't want a team to have like one dude that carries them. You know what I mean? That they want it to be a team. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And yes, that does make me. I'll be honest with you, man. I mean, I didn't know that, and I didn't look it up because I just don't spend any time. Like, it's so not important to me that I'm not even going to look that up.
The other one that's kind of important, and this one would follow for Underwood, Bednar, probably Roansy, because I think we've talked about he's probably going to be a relief pitcher.
It depends on how many games they play. I mean, they may need to use him to start, but even then, he's only going 60.
There's 4 games around, I do believe.
Oh, yeah.
So
So he's
if
coming
you
in
pitch,
relief
if you pitch in 2 consecutive days, you can't come in a third day.
at all.
No. So Bednar is not going to
Okay.
close out or pitch in 3 straight games.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's fair.
I tried to just touch on the highlighted point.
That's
I'm not
good.
going to
No, you're
spend too
right.
much time on this, but I
Yeah.
think that's important because I don't think I like the WBC. I think it's a blast. I was actually at I think it was Puerto Rico versus the United States in 2006 out in Arizona, and I had a blast. I thought it was awesome. I think the World Baseball Classic is what it is. I think it's cool for the sport. I don't know. It's a fun. I don't know what else to say. I mean, Paul Goldschmidt said it's the best baseball experience he's ever had.
Well, he played for the Diamondbacks for a long time, so
Touche.
I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
But no, I mean,
I don't. There's. I mean, yeah.
The players enjoy it.
They do, and that's fine because you get to play with some different people, and you know what I mean.
Mhm.
Like, especially the Latin players and stuff like that. I'm sure that's big for them. And I don't mean to say this to downplay your experience in the least. Like, please don't hear me wrong here, but you went to a game, you had that experience. You're bound to think more of it than I am, right? There's just like, that's an obvious thing. Like, had I gone to a game, maybe I'd be more interested in it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that was like, that fell in your lap, right? You were there with your college baseball team and and Allians went, right? Or yeah. So you know what I mean? Like there's something there that feeds into that. Everything, especially baseball, is like there's experience involved. You know what I'm saying? When you go to games when you're a kid, you're going to be a baseball fan longer than somebody who didn't go to games as a kid. It's different. There are people that I talk to all the time, I don't really follow baseball much. You ever been to a game? No. And it's like, if you did, I wonder how it would change the way that you feel about the game.
Yeah.
Because baseball, I believe, live baseball is such an experience. I think I got less interested in football when I went to a game. I was like, I was cold the whole time. I couldn't see anything. And all these people were yelling at me. You know what I mean? Like, I was just a kid.
That.
It was like, I never want to go to a football game again. And when I watch it at home, I'm like, look at all these replays, look at all these zoom and extra. Like, yeah, the experience at home for me, I was warm, by the way, so much better for football. And I don't hate watching baseball at home by any stretch of the imagination, but going to a game is just different.
Mm-hmm.
There is something to be said about the experience. I mean, it's also nicer weather too. But anyway, just to, keep things moving here. That's just my thing. I just don't see it as something that's entirely important. I think when they took baseball out of the Olympics, this is their goal to get this thing back, in a world view. Fair enough. The ratings show nobody watches it, but, I understand, like, that's not what everything is about. You know what I mean? So eventually, someday, maybe it's cool. I wish they would do it in December.
Yeah, I wish they'd do it a little bit earlier. Yeah,
I don't like I don't like the idea of pulling guys away from their team for like a long period of time. I guess that's where I land on it. However, our final thoughts. Choi can be disappointed and not be a problem.
Yeah,
it's fine to be disappointed about things. You're allowed to be disappointed about things without causing a problem. You know what I mean? I tell that to my daughter all the time. Listen, I don't mind if you say, "Oh man," when it's time to go to bed, so long as you stand up and go to bed.
Yeah.
I don't care if you're upset about going to bed, so long as you go to bed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So same thing with G-Man Choi. That's fine that you're upset. We believe we're making the right decision. And like you said, we write your paycheck. So I think this is a lot to say about something that's not very much.
Sure.
Okay. So that's it, man. That's all we had to talk about. I'm kidding. So basically, we had a couple more signings, right? Kevin Plawecki and Caleb Smith were the most recent ones that are minor league deals. So Plawecki's a catcher. Numbers are pretty similar to what we got from Heineman.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm concerned, he's going to compete for that backup spot with Heineman.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, I think this is probably, maybe the cream soda was a bad idea. I keep muting my
Milk
mic
was
here.
a bad choice.
Milk was a bad choice. Yeah,
I mean, I
Plawecki
can
is.
see.
Go ahead.
I can see delay in the mix too. They're all non-roster invitees. I mean,
Yeah, I can. Gosh, delay was so bad defensively that I just can't.
And I'm with you. I'm just saying. I mean, they're all three probably in the.
Yeah.
The mix.
They're 100% in the mix. I think you got to look. I mean, is somebody going to give you some sort of offensive upside? Kevin Plawecki's a former first round pick, which kind of makes him. It kind of lines up with a lot of these things, right? You know, the pedigree's at least there, and it's a Ben Sherrington thing to go after a former first round pick.
I will give that argument to anyone under 30.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, you're a former first round pick, but you're 31 now, and you haven't done a ton.
Right.
You pretty much are what you are at this point.
Except for the fact that, like, Heineman has played a total of 82 games in the major leagues, and Kevin Plawecki has played 447. So while he hasn't, like, been the first round pick that, you know, you hope to see from him, I mean, he broke into the league at 24. Heineman didn't make it till 28. There, you know what I mean? Like, so there's some pieces there that still makes you think, like, well, I mean, he's had a lot more experience than Heineman.
Yeah. No. I'm with you on that. I'm just saying the first round pick theory for me is over.
Okay. Heineman, on his career, a 214 hitter, with a home run. What in his very first year in Miami in 2019 with the juice ball, where Kevin Plawecki he's a 235 hitter, 313 on base, with 22 home runs on his career, compared to Heineman 279 on base. By the way, I mean, that doesn't really. I mean, what means is, like, what's clicking right now. You know, Heineman's is also a switch hitter. I imagine that plays somewhat. It does for me. I don't know that. I think his defense is probably a little bit better than Plawecki. I think Plawecki's always been a bat first guy. Either way, whoever it is there until Endy comes up, and they're a backup to Hedges, and I don't know. I like the idea that there's more competition. That's what I like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So as far as Caleb Smith, he's another left-handed guy in that it is in the minor leagues who's an option, and you've seen him do that. They just got trying to think of the other lefty that they just got recently. Daniel Zamora. Rob, you ready for this? We got it. Zastrinsny. We looked it up. No, Zastrizny. I threw another N before the Z. Zastrizny. It's a tough one. Anyway,
yeah,
you heard it here. We looked it up. It's Zastrizny. So there's like 4 guys right now that are non-roster that are left-handed pitchers. And so that's good. We didn't have that. We have 2 on our 40-man, Harley and Garcia, who got the contract, you know what I mean? Like an actual contract. And then we have a Rule 5 guy. So we probably know who the 2 are going in there, unless the Rule 5 guy's so bad. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that if there's injuries, you do have someone to take that spot if you wanted to stick with a lefty. So hopefully those guys stick, and hopefully they do all right. The numbers are what they are, but if they have to be the lefty for somebody to be on the injured list for 20 days, I think we can deal with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Other than that, like when you look at the non-roster guys, is there anybody on the non-roster side that might stick out to you? And so, like, I'll start with pitching, And I'll throw you a couple out here, make it easy on you. Cody Bolton's obviously going to be interesting to watch. Jared Jones, Carmen Majinski, Kyle Nicholas, Quinn Priester. Those are like the prospect type guys that are like, oh, those are interesting. Anything on Tyler Chatwood or even Caleb Smith or Nathan Webb or any of those guys? Is there anything there for you to be like, hey, man, you never know? I mean, other than the general, you never know.
Yeah.
Anything at all?
I'm looking at them right now, and I'm not seeing anything that's like sticking out, like just on paper. Such like I'll look at things that like your size, and like Tyler Chatwood's 5'11". Not much there.
Okay.
There's just not there. I would not like we have any like big guys.
Perdomo that they brought in 6'8".
Perdomo 6'8", 265. That's a.
It's interesting that you go to their size. That's just like, so basically, no, you don't know anything about any of these guys that you're thinking.
Yeah, I just don't know anything. So
okay. So then let's move on to catcher then, because there's 5 guys there. Then we've already talked about Plawecki and Heineman, and you brought up Jason DeLay. Henry Davis is going to be there too. He's not playing in anything here. I could see a world where Carter Binns gets added, and if the rest of these guys are so bad and Binns is playing well, I don't see why you hold him back. I don't think he's in the future plans. So to me, he's no different at this point than what you're seeing from the rest of these guys, other than age, right? So for me, he's got just the same path as DeLay, Heineman, and Plawecki to take that backup role that might just go away later. But I don't know. I mean, not that I'm sitting here saying this is a hot take that I think Carter Binns is going to take it. But it's good to see that there's some competition there for that role. Yeah. Somebody's going to earn a spot at the catcher position on the 40-man roster this spring.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, Endy and Henry are the guys we're watching, right? At the catcher spot. I mean, that is going to be all eyes on those 2 guys and how they do.
And hopefully it's a lot of fun.
I'd like to see them both, at least show us some things. Obviously, like when he comes into spring, you're always torn between like, oh, I want that guy to rake. I'd kind of be okay if he struggled, if it gives him something he needs to do, especially a guy like Henry Davis. However, everybody's so down on Henry Davis right now that I feel like you're really just knocking him and Nick Gonzalez because they've been injured. So I kind of want them to show up and make people start talking about him again. Tamar Johnson, we're going to see. That's going to be interesting. Malcolm Nunez is, to me, like a super interesting player because first base is a problem. The fact that Mason Martin is not on the non-roster invites, and we'll probably see him play.
Yeah.
We'll probably see him get into some games. You don't have to be on this list to play. So I don't know. As far as those non-rosters, it's still just, for me, it's still just watching these younger guys like Nick Gonzalez, Tamar Johnson, Malcolm Nunez, Matt Gorski.
I really want to see Tamar Johnson, like just to see him play.
Yeah.
That dude's swing is so good.
Yeah. So then as far as breaking down the rest of the team, the guys that, aren't non-rosters, and we've already said something about Endy. But like, what is it you're looking for out of our players? I mean, this is kind of a loose conversation we're having here this week, guys. We're not coming out. Last week was a really heavy episode, and we're going to talk about a couple of responses. We got to that here in a little bit, in a couple minutes. But we just kind of wanted to highlight a few of the guys that we're kind of watching for. We're just excited for baseball to happen again.
Yeah.
So what is it you're watching for? In the spring, like what is it you're watching for? Name some of those things or one of those things that we can get into.
Yeah, I'd like to see Chase DeYoung continue to do what he did last year. It seemed like something clicked last year, and he was a pretty good pitcher. I'd like to see if that's stuck, if he can come out for the second straight year and be another good piece to that bullpen.
Yeah, and there was a little bit of luck tied into that, but like because of the fact that it was still consistent over the course of the whole thing means like maybe it's less luck. Luck don't last forever, you know what I mean? And so I think there's some of that. I think that's an interesting one too, because to me, that's a big question mark. because if he's
Mhm.
good, he's on the team. He doesn't have any options. And so he's going to be one of those guys. If you're Yuri De Los Santos or Dowry Moretta or one of those guys, like that kind of a guy not doing well is how you're going to get on the team.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're going to Indy, like no matter how good you are.
Right.
But to me, on top of that, while we stay with pitching, I'm interested to see. We got to see Johan Oviedo and Luis Ortiz come up last year and pitch so well. Knowing that they kind of don't have a spot on this team, if you do well, they'll find a spot. That's always been the thing. I'm less sure about Luis Ortiz. Johan Oviedo, I feel like they could move into a long reliever type guy earlier than Ortiz. But if you do well, they'll find a spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of one of those things where I'm really excited to see those two guys. And if they come out looking the way they did when they made their appearances last year, I just want to see if that's because we've been talking a lot about them and we've all been putting them in our rotation by year's end. You know what I'm saying? We've all been doing that. And now it's time for the talk to stop and they've got to show up and do it. And that to me is always very interesting. Talk is easy, especially for me and you. We don't have to go out there and do it. I'd like to see if like the changeup work that Ortiz was doing is going to pay off. And if we're going to see that happen in spring.
Yeah.
So, and last thing I have on pitching is, to see who in the world Vince Velasquez is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we've said our thing and, the hype video and the whole thing that all the buzz things that we talked about, but now it's spring training. We're getting here. Let's see what he's about. We got a few more minutes here. We got like 3 more minutes according to my time here that I'm looking at. And so, what's the other piece of this? Second base, obviously. Castro, Bay. Is Marcano in that discussion immediately, or does he have to put himself in that discussion?
I think he'd be in the discussion. I think he's more slotted for like a utility role, backup role. I don't think you'll see him in a starting. You're our starting second baseman.
Well, that's what I'm saying though. Is he in the mix though? Can he? I mean, like, of course he can earn it, but like, is he going to have to force himself in the mix, or do you feel like it's either going to be Castro or it's going to be Bay? Likely.
I think he's in the mix.
Okay.
Because, Bay can move around as well.
Yeah. And Castro can through the infield.
Castro, yeah.
And really, even if it's just like, oh, well, today Castro's playing second, I'm throwing Marcano in left. You know what I'm saying? Like that's, that's not impossible. So, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. To me, that is the most interesting thing is the Bay Castro battle at second. And I know a lot of people putting Bay in center field. I'm sorry, you play 11 games, you don't get a spot.
Right.
Like I know everybody, the tools are like interesting, but like, no, you don't get a spot like that. That's not how this works. And especially in a position that you've barely played.
Mm-hmm.
Like overwhelmingly more, like he had more innings at second base last year than he's ever had in his entire career in the outfield. If you count all of his innings together. So he's a second baseman who can play some outfield. He's fast.
Until that changes.
Until his bat.
But it's not changed yet.
It hasn't changed yet for me. His bat has to get him in that lineup. And then it's like, where can we put you? And the only way he's going to center is if Castro's bat is also really good.
Yeah.
Because if Castro's bat isn't, then they'll just put Bay at second.
Yeah.
It makes the most sense. Especially when you got Brian Reynolds in center field already. You're not moving him. Especially right now. You're not moving him.
Right.
We've said enough about him. We're not moving him out of center.
I'm interested to see Key.
So
I'm interested to see him swing a bat.
That was where I was going to go with this after the video, and he's put up some pictures, and he's thick right now, and
he's getting yoked.
He looks a little more like a third baseman.
Yeah.
Then, you know what I mean? And maybe this is it, man. Maybe he's coming in, he's going to be healthy for the first time in a minute. And now it's like, hey, if we're going to use this as an excuse, here we go again. This is the same thing. This is the thing about that is the theme, I think, for Pirates of spring training this year. We can talk all we want about this team being improved. Key Bryan is a huge part of that.
Oh, yeah.
He has to be like part of the core. And I think that is going to make a huge deal because he's playing third base.
Yeah.
So show up. And, you know, I believe he can. I think there's a lot of numbers out there that keep being brought up that says he's hitting the ball hard. He's just hitting it into the ground.
Yeah.
Could that just be a wrist thing? You know what I mean? Because that feels like that could very well be a wrist thing. Yeah. So anyway, I'm interested to see that. I'd like to see who Connor Joe is. I want to see if Kanan Smith and Jigba's healthy. You know, other than that, let's see if Swaggerty can kind of force their hand. Everybody's kind of writing him off. Let's see if he can do something different or if he just fades. And obviously, what did Sawinski work on?
Yeah. So when we were talking about doing this episode, you told me to come up with a few players that I was interested to watch. And the number one player on my list is Kutch. I just want to watch him in a Pirates uniform again. You know, it's going to be so great. But Travis Swaggerty was number 2.
Okay.
You know, I mean, it's not that he's not been given a fair shake. He's just been hurt. And he's been giving himself a bad rap. So I want to see if they gave him a low number this year. And we did the whole numbers thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so he's going to be he's wearing number 5.
Yep.
So the organization is saying, you have a shot, but you're going to have to prove it and you're going to have to take it.
That's an interesting take. That is interesting that the organization by doing that might be telling him like, okay.
I mean, why else would you let him pick number 5?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. Whoa. Just had somebody run into the door. So,
but
anyway.
I'm with you too. I really want to see what Sawinski's worked on. I think he's got a lot of potential.
Yep. All right. That it is. I kind of thought you were going to end with Kutch. That would have been cool.
Sorry.
So we'll just pretend that that's what happened.
Yeah. And Kutch in a Pirates uniform.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big thing. That's a big thing. And we've talked about that enough.
So brought him back. Now bring back the mustard yellow.
Oh, here we go. We're not doing that.
We're not getting into
that. All right. So let's get into our draft stuff. We're just going to run right through here.
All right.
There's, something going on tonight. So we're motivated to get this thing wrapped up.
Yeah. I got to cook pork chops for the wife. So
yeah. Okay. That's it. So we got some responses to last week. Our good friend Vince was talking about the lineup stuff. Said those numbers are wild to me. Which we got a lot of that kind of thing. But yeah, you and Vince been friends for a long time.
Yeah, he was in my wedding. No big deal.
No big deal. So let's see here. We got Pirate Takes, another great show, guys. I think there's a difference between tanking and punting. It's a progression. In a market like Pittsburgh, you spend to make a good team great, not to make a bad team okay. It's an interesting take there. We kind of covered that. Good drafts for both of you. And he asks, did McLouth's return to the Pirates hurt his stock? What do you got on that?
I forgot that he came back, to be honest.
No, and I kind of said, like, man, I didn't even think of McLouth. Because I know we all loved him, right?
And I definitely thought of him.
I didn't even think of him. But the thing is when I looked up all the numbers, his name never popped up. He never forced, like those numbers never forced me to think about him. And so I think that for me, that was it. Like he just wasn't on, I don't even know if he was on my long list where I was writing guys down. He's not even on my long list. No. So he just never popped up. Just never came to mind for me. So anyway, no, I don't think it was the fact that when he came back, he wasn't good. Let's see what else we got. Michael from the 412 Double Play podcast. Ton of great info about lineup construction, consistency, and consistency. Blah. Wouldn't have thought it was a league-wide thing like that. And he gives us his draft. Bonds, Giles, Kutch, Bay, and Martin. Better than Kendall on defense and had solid offense for a playoff run. So he was kind of defending his Martin thing. But that's a good draft there. For sure. Pirate Takes, another great I already read that one. That was the Nate McLouth one. Eslearn 15. My reaction was the same as Jake's, head explosion emoji. That lessened my frustration, which that was kind of one of the things I was like, that's kind of where I was going with this.
Mm-hmm.
Lessen your frustration. Times have changed in the late 90s. Watching the Phillies, Orioles, and Braves, which was local for him, seemed those lineups never changed outside injuries. I could almost tell you those today. And that's what we've all been thinking. And the numbers are still kind of big back then. Still like in the 90s, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I just want to get to that team. It was like we ran 36 lineups out there. Like, I know I don't have the Yark one written down here, but he said basically they've been doing this for decades. And we just didn't. It's perception. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Pirate Queen. The number of different lineups used across the league is really eye-opening. Game strategy has changed. If the lowest was, I believe it was 125. Going to have to pick Jake's draft this time due to Kutch, Reynolds, and Martin. So Jake gets the win. It's the only there's one more that definitely gets that would be a vote for me.
Once we get the rest of this done, we'll probably put up a poll.
Yeah, that'd be good. I want to see, because we'll put the whole thing up.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, that would be good. All right. My favorite conversation I had this week, though, and was with Douglas 12821. Doug, he's gonna listen. I'm sure he's waiting for me to talk about this because we had a good conversation. Stellar episode. He said great discussion on punting and lineups. Their draft was a little off though. Love him or hate him, Bonds has to be first. So then I clarified. I was like, well, we were only looking from like 1990 and on. So I think the two of us kind of, thought the 3 years while they were his best, they were just three. To which he says, Bonds is the answer. 3 years, 10 years, 1 year. If you're drafting a team to win, Bonds is chosen over Kutch by anybody. I love Kutch, but not enough to think he's as good as Bonds, no matter how unlikable he is. We had some fun back and forth on that because I don't know if anybody, apparently, not anybody, but I said that we had some fun back and forth on it, which maybe was more psychology on my part. And he finished with, because I said something like, I think if I had to pick the best Barry in MLB history, I might pick Barry Zito, then Barry Bonds, just out of spite. And he said, now we get to the root of the issue. But anyway, he finished with, I'll come after you next week when you draft Van Meter. Which brings us to this week's draft. For those of you who are just now picking up, we are drafting 5 players each. This week we're doing infielders. 1 at each position and 1 extra is how we're going to do this week. So just to remind you guys, last week, my outfielders draft was Barry Bonds, Andy Van Slyke, Starling Marte, Bobby Bonilla, and Jason Kendall. Jake's, who got the first pick, was Andrew McCutchen, Brian Reynolds, Brian Giles, Jason Bay, and Russell Martin. So you win last week, even though I'm the one with Bonds. So I don't really even know. We did say at one point in that conversation with Doug, he was like, I keep saying I wouldn't pick him first, but I did because he was my first pick because you picked Kutch and I said I would have picked Kutch and I still think I would have. I mean, I think we're going to disagree on that only because it is hard. It just depends on who you are and what you value. We saw the multiple years, if he had 1,000 more hits than Bonds after 1990 because he played more seasons, sure. But 1,000 is hard to argue for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's just there was that for me. And I can't remove emotion and bias. It was one of the other things. I just can't. So some of that plays in. I will say for this week, I spent a lot of time doing a few things this week, and looking up all of these statistics was not one of them. So the time that I've looked into infielders was a couple weeks ago. So I may not be able to back up a lot of these. And the same thing happened last week when I said Al Martin was in my list and not Jason Bay. That was a miss, and it was probably because like I didn't spend that extra 20 minutes looking at the bottom half of my draft. It was more ordering the top half of my board. And so yeah, oh, we said we were going to flip, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I've got a coin here. We're going to flip live to see who picks first. We both have won a draft. Not coincidentally, the first person to pick has won both drafts. So we're going to flip. You want heads or tails?
I'll take heads.
Okay, I don't even know how I'm going to do this. I just do that and then put it like
Catch it.
that,
Yep.
and then flip it and then see if it'll pick it up. I'm going to flip it up here. See if I can get it in focus here. What is it?
That is a tails.
Okay. I will defer. Psych. Yeah, okay. I'll go first then. Infielders.
Are we just doing this real quick? Are we just picking? Or are we saying we're going to pick our first base, our second base, or third base? Or are we just picking?
I don't think we have to go in order. That way, like,
All right.
that way
All right.
you don't have to get the second of every position, right? If I pick the
Yep.
best, say first baseman, you might go pick the best second baseman, you know what I mean, and go from there.
Yep.
This
Sounds
one to
good.
me is super difficult.
Yeah.
There's
Had the
not a
same
lot of like there's not a lot of like big time. We've had some really good pitchers. Drabick won a Cy Young, Garrett Cole, AJ Burnett, Francisco Liriano, the things that they were able to do during the playoffs. And you know what I mean? Some of those guys, outfielders, obviously, Bonds, Kutch, Giles, Bay, like there was plenty of guys there.
Mm-hmm.
When I looked over the infielders, I was like, holy cow, it's a short list at every position.
Yeah.
And I know that like there's going to be some really weird things. There's not a clear number one pick, I don't think. Do you think there is?
No.
There might be a clear number one pick at a position. There's not a clear like, what's my advantage of going first this week? I don't know. It might be an awful pick. I really don't know. For the sake of like moving things along here, I guess I'm going to kick it off by going with Neil Walker at second. I don't know if that's a mistake.
I don't think so. It's a solid pick.
Yeah, it's a solid pick. I don't know if I'm missing somebody. I don't have a huge list here.
I'm going to go ahead and take O'Neal Cruz, shortstop.
Oh. Okay. Already.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't want that bat to get away from me.
Okay. It wouldn't have.
Dang it.
Okay. I'm a little torn here. I'm going to have to look up a couple guys here. Just because I'm a little torn on a couple of these guys. So I'm going to see if I can keep this thing going while I type these two guys in.
Doing a great job.
Yeah, thanks. All right, so Neil Walker, you've already picked your starting shortstop. You could still jump in and take another shortstop, so it's not like I'm
Right.
It's not like I'm, killing myself by not picking shortstop right now, but at least I can wait a little bit, which means I'm going to first or third. All right, this one's going to be I really should have done more homework, Jake. I really should have. It's going to be a first baseman. I'm going to pick my first baseman right now. And I'm torn between two people. Obviously can't say who they are because of obvious reasons. But just looking between two. I think I had one in mind and I had another one. I was like, yeah, but No, I think I'm definite. My first baseman is going to be Orlando Merced.
Oh, not on my list at all.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to pick Orlando Merced at first base.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and go to. I'm going to go to third base, and I'm a little torn here.
Uh-huh.
But just because of what I think he's going to do this year, I'm going with Key Brian Hayes.
Wow. You are making this really hard on me.
That defense is just
Key Brian Hayes. So you've gone with two guys that are on the Pirates like now.
our infield is going to be very good this year.
You think it's that good though? I'm not telling you it's not. I mean,
Right.
Key Brian Hayes, because you're projecting forward with both of these guys. So this is a definite like different. You're going a different route this week's draft. If you pick Rodolfo Castro next, though, I'm stopping the podcast.
I'm not.
I'm stopping the
So?
podcast. So I'm also torn at third base. A little bit of shortstop. There's some tear there as well. And I'm just kind of looking at a couple different guys here because I have these guys and I have them in a certain order. But when I kept thinking about it, I was like, man, I don't know. I think I'm going to go with my gut here, and I'm going to go ahead and pick my third baseman. And I know that this is definitely another one.
You're gonna get blasted for this.
I'm going to get blasted for this, and you know it.
But you shouldn't. You shouldn't.
You know who I'm picking.
I absolutely know who you're picking.
Pedro Alvarez had an RBI in every
absolutely.
playoff game that they played in. He, like, before he got bad, he led the league in homers one year. There was
one of the wild card games where he did not record an RBI.
The last one. So, but I was talking about that 2013 season. He had an RBI in every one of those games, and that's the year he led the league in homers and strikeouts. That's not lost on me. And he was only that All-Star that one year, but it was either him. There's Jeff King. There's Ramis Ramirez that I was thinking of too, and like it just like the number of home runs were greater, and the fact that like he was he was very important to that playoff team.
Oh yeah,
very important.
For sure.
The whole season, very important. It wasn't until he got the yips that things started going downhill for him. Had we had a DH in the National League back then, I think his career looks entirely different.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
This is not a strong pull, guys. I don't feel great about that because I know what the numbers are. Like, I know the average was never there. I know there was a lot of strikeouts. He had 130 home runs with the Pirates. You know, Ramirez had like 80 in the same amount of years. So I don't know. I'm interested to see what other people come up with. I mean, don't come at me with Andy LaRoche, but I'm interested.
Right. So I'm going to go ahead and move into first base, I think, at this point. And I'm going to go ahead and take the switch hitting Josh Bell.
Okay. So he was not one of the guys. He's number 3 on my list, but my 2 at the top were Kevin Young and Orlando Merced. And that's what I was
I don't
trying
have
to.
either one of them on my list.
Who else is on? Well, I guess you can't do that yet. I want to know who else is on your first base list. But all right, so I'm at shortstop now. I have to pick shortstop, and I was doing one of those things where I was going to see if you'd take one of them. You got O'Neal Cruz, so I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with Jay Bell.
He was my other shortstop.
Okay. So you need to pick a second baseman.
I need to pick a second baseman and an extra player.
Yeah, you could jump ahead and pick the extra player if you wanted.
And I'm actually surprised you haven't. I'm gonna go ahead and take Jay Hay at second base.
I like that.
I had Walker and Freddie Sanchez at second base.
You shouldn't give that up yet.
You're right. You're right. I shouldn't, but I did now, so it's over. But I'm gonna go ahead and take Jay Hay at second.
It's not over. We both still have a pick.
Well, I already know who my extra player is going to be.
Okay.
So
if I want Freddie Sanchez, he's mine. If I want him, he's mine anyway.
right.
Because he's one of the guys on my He's one of the guys on my list. I had Harrison, and since you've already broke the ice on that one, I had Freddie Sanchez on that list too. And I'm really torn between him and another player for that last spot for me. It really could go either way. I don't feel great about this draft at all. We really Pirates need to do better on the infield.
Yeah, and I think we're trending that way.
Okay.
I mean, obviously by my picks.
I don't even care where I go from here.
That's a good call when you're drafting a team.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Jack Wilson just to try to get some fan picks.
Okay. So my last guy is my extra player is I can't deny what he did when he came in, Derek Lee.
Oh, okay.
Derek Lee was a monster for us.
Wow.
I don't know, it shouldn't say monster, but he was very good for us. It was a short sample size.
Yeah.
So in the back half of the year, but he put up some numbers.
I definitely spelled that name wrong.
Derek Lee, you spelled wrong?
Yeah, there's a Derek Lee, an outfielder pinch hitter who only had 33 at bats in the majors. 2 R's, not 1. 1 R, Derek Lee, not good. I mean, he made it to the show in 1993, so good, but that was it.
Yeah.
So Derek Lee, last stop of his career.
No.
Yeah.
No. Played like 2 more years.
No, he didn't.
Okay, I'm thinking of somebody else then.
Hopefully you're 337.
Yeah.
With 1 home run in 28 games. This is the guy you're going with. A guy who hit 1 home run with the Pirates. And this is your extra player. You could have picked Freddie Sanchez, who won a batting title.
I don't remember that's what I was.
Did you look at like his, were you looking at his total 2011 numbers of 19 home runs? Oh, wait, no, I said 1 home run. It was
7 home runs.
1 triple. I looked at the wrong column. It's way up there. They should put it down at the bottom too.
They do.
7 home runs. All right, 7 home runs.
I was like, I don't remember it being 1 home run.
You're right. 7 home runs in 28 games, 100 at bats, 337, 398, OPS plus of 173. Boy, I got lost in the middle of that one when I read one.
Yeah, I was like, you made me like,
yeah.
I got scared. I'm like, did I read it wrong? Did I read the stat sheet wrong?
I feel bad that Freddie Sanchez in the batting title didn't make it. I should have probably picked him for my last one, but I don't know, man. There's a lot
I could have, yeah, and I could have went with him at second and Jay Hayes my extra.
I mean, I like the pick, but yeah. Yeah, it's good. This was a really tough one for me, and I didn't do enough homework on it. So go ahead and tell us how bad these are. But Doug, I did not pick Josh Van Meter. He's not on my list. If anything, he would have been on my list for catcher anyway. You know.
Wow.
But, yeah, no. Anyway, that's all I have, man. To me, this kind of wraps up our draft thing because next week, like, we're in spring training. We're there.
Yeah, and we'll try to get a poll up too.
Yeah, we will try to get a poll up. I like I said. So let me review one more time if you want to do the vote, and then we gotta wrap this thing up. Jake's draft this week: O'Neal Cruz at short, Ke'Bryan Hayes at third, Josh Bell at first, Josh Harrison at second, and Derek Lee filling in. Or we'll say DH. That's how we'll do it right now. Nah, that's not fair because I didn't pick a DH. I picked a good defensive shortstop. I went with Neil Walker at second, Orlando Merced at first, Pedro Alvarez at third, Jay Bell and Jack Wilson were my shortstops. So let us know how crazy we were for not picking Freddie Sanchez. Did you have anybody else? Who else was on your first base list?
Adam LaRoche.
Oh, okay.
His numbers were really not that bad. I always thought they were bad, but when I went back and looked, his numbers were not bad in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
We just expected him to do more than what
Yeah, and he never. Yep. So Freddie Sanchez, Jeff King, Aramis Ramirez, and Jordy Mercer on my shortstops, not knowing how far I was going to have to go. And I will say O'Neal Cruz was my number 4 shortstop. But I just couldn't imagine ever getting to that. And you went straight out with... But you went... So you have to understand, like, when you're thinking about this and you're looking, like, your draft might look different, but you might look at Jake's draft and say, I like the projection going forward. And, you know... So you might like that from Jake's draft. So anyway, that's our drafts. Let us know. Twitter's the best way as far as I'm concerned, but let us know in any way. Comment down on the YouTube if you want who won the draft, and then we'll try to get a poll up this week
for the whole team.
For the whole team, and see, you know, who got the best of that draft. It's actually going to be close.
Yeah.
It's actually going to be close. Boy, we shouldn't have saved infield for last. This was the anticlimactic finish to this, which was a fun exercise. It's good for debate, so let us know. You have anything else? Man, pitchers and catchers this week. Here we go. It's time.
I got a couple days left to wear the T-shirt you got me for Christmas. So
that's right. What is it actually say?
It's not the new year until pitchers and catchers report.
Yeah, I mean, you still wear it, but it's not going to mean as much.
Right. Wear it again next off season.
Yeah. All right. Super Bowl tonight. Oh, sorry. Big game.
Big game. The big game tonight.
Gosh, so stupid. I don't care. Do you have a pick?
I don't like the Chiefs, so go Eagles.
Okay. I said, do you have a pick?
Eagles.
I looked at the Eagles quarterbacks that they faced. This is what I've been telling people. They have not faced a quarterback this year, like very rarely. They went up against Dak Prescott and they went up against Aaron Rodgers at different times. Both of those guys scored 30 on them. I think the Eagles look like they're really good, and I think they are really good. By all means, I think they're really good, but I'm just like some of the things that people tell me about of why they're good is on the wrong side of the ball. Because the truth of the matter is they've went up against 2 really good quarterbacks this year. And really Aaron Rodgers, you can say what you want, but like those guys put up 30. And the rest of the quarterbacks just haven't been like great. So I'm nervous for the Eagles when it comes to, like, Mahomes is right now number 1 until he's dethroned. So Jalen Hurts is going to score a lot too, though. But if I was picking, I'm picking the Eagles. I forget what my number. I have numbers. Do you have squares? Did you do squares?
I did not.
Okay, mine are not good. I'm pretty sure Keely has 1 and 0, so she might win some money tonight.
Yeah.
All right.
Good deal.
Let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
And I got these clips somewhere. I always forget. Like, I'm always in the conversation, right? And then I'm like, yeah, well, let's play the... And I always forget, like, where all of my stuff is at the end. So we're good. We got it.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks!